Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and we just got a quick video here updating some news from the Week 8 matchup and just some of the fallout from this game, given there were a lot of injuries, especially to the receiving core. We could confirm last night, and I waited to record this until today just because I had all my stuff put up. I wasn't able to record. I had to go to work early in the morning, but Christian Kirk is officially out for the season. He suffered an injury that is going to sideline him throughout the whole year. This takes him off the trade block. It's going to prevent what probably would have been a trade. And there's even sources saying that this was going to be with Pittsburgh, most likely. And the other side of this, unfortunately, is that the Jaguars didn't just lose one wide receiver. It appears that Brian Thomas Jr. could also miss time. And there's some talk that this is going to be 2 to 4 weeks because of the rib injury that he suffered. Now, there's a little bit of, I guess, confusion on Brian Thomas Jr.'s injury because it sounded like talking to him, at least when the media did, that it was possible that he was going to be back on the field as soon as this week. And if he was, he might end up playing, especially with a front office and a coaching staff that is 2-6 right now. Right? Trying to save their necks. And this is really how it's going to be done, if any way. I don't think they're going to win without him, without some really good luck or some incredible game plan that they don't ever really have. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens to Brian Thomas Jr. But honestly, my thoughts, like at this point, you're 2-6, right? You're 5th in the draft order, and you're not going to make the playoffs. You're not playing teams that are going to let you walk in. You don't have an easy schedule the next 4 weeks. Maybe at the end of the season you do. But you're going to be eliminated before you even get to that. Because if you don't go 2-2 against these really good teams that you're going to face in the Eagles, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Texans, if you do not go 2-2 at least, you're guaranteed to have a losing record. You can't get to 9 losses, right? At a point, the comeback kind of ends. Right? It's not possible. And it's not like the division is going to be so bad that a losing team's going to make the playoffs. So you're already at this point. To me, it's like, I would just sit him during this time. Like, I understand if he wants to get on the field, and I get that. But be smart about this, right? You already lost a trade piece, or if he's not a trade piece, what would be a part of this team going forward in Christian Kirk. And why risk probably one of your best investments that you've made getting seriously hurt from this or re-aggravating this injury, right? Like, to me, this is a situation where it's pretty clear the way this season's going. I don't think there's any changing at this point. I would exercise caution with Brian Thomas Jr. Like, the likelihood of this team even being able to win these next couple of games while Brian Thomas Jr. is trying to come back, assuming he actually does have to miss time, it's not that high, right? Like, just something to look at here. Trevor Lawrence's stats on this year, right? 1,835 passing yards. You combine what Brian Thomas Jr. or Christian Kirk have done in the receiving game, it's over half the passing yards. Like, you're going to have to throw to Gabe Davis, who hasn't even averaged 30 yards a game. He's actually well below that. You see 27.1. And you're going to have to throw to Parker Washington, who we don't really know a whole lot about yet and what he's going to be during the regular season just because we haven't got to see enough of him. And this will be perhaps a blessing in disguise to get him on the field, right? Like, this is a big thing for the future. I think it's important that you get to see this. It's one of those good things that comes out of a much worse situation. But that's not really, like, we're not looking at Parker Washington saying, like, all right, this offense is completely fine. We're set to go. We're going to be great. You hope that was the case. It's not really that likely, right? And then your next wide receiver, I mean, what, Tim Jones? Is that your next guy up at that point? Like, they're going to have to pull up guys from the practice squad as well. You're going to have to get Devin Duvernay more involved. That's not something that he's really done that well this year. He's got 1 reception on what? Well, I guess 1 target, but -1 yards on the season. Like, that's not really what he does. Plus, he's hurt right now, so he's not even going to be back during this time. it's going to be a really rough situation while Brian Thomas Jr. is out, if he is out, because he could play this week, and it's possible. It's very unlikely, I would say, but it is possible. We're just at a point, though, where I just don't see... I don't see how this turns around. I don't see why it would be worth rushing these players back. I think you're at a point where, you know, obviously the GM and the head coach aren't going to be on board with this, but if you're the owner, you need to step in and say, okay, well, this is a lost cause. This is a lost season. We need to do the best things we can moving forward and get ready for the future, because there is no future in 2024. Unfortunately, that's the case. And they came close to salvaging the season, right? But they could have gone 3-5. They could have had momentum. And Lawrence had a fantastic final drive in the game that really got people excited, but the defense couldn't finish. So you can't change this stuff. You can't change the close games. The season's gone at this point, barring one of the biggest miracles in franchise history, right? And just because they did that in 2022 doesn't mean it's going to happen this year. So it's a rough situation. A lot of injuries. You gotta rest your guys, I think, that you're considering trading. That being ETN, Cam Robinson, maybe a Chad Muma. There's other guys you could throw out too, maybe even Andre Sisco. It's got to scare you a little bit in that regard. I think that's something worth watching, just given, you know, Cam Robinson did get benched this last game. Not that Walker Little played incredible, but Robinson didn't really take any snaps. So you got to wonder with him being a healthy scratch, given he was cleared from the concussion protocol. Now, just to reiterate the receiver position again, I mean, as long as these guys are out, there's Christian Kirk obviously out indefinitely. He's not coming back this year. These are your three receivers on the roster. It is just Gabe Davis, Tim Jones, Parker Washington. And you got your tight ends. That's the good part of it, right? Because Evan Ingram's played really well. Brennan Strange has gotten way more involved, and it's been good to see. So, I mean, that's something. But you're going to have to pull guys off the practice squad. You're going to need an Elijah Cooks or, you know, maybe an Austin Trammell or a Joshua Cephas. One of these moves is probably going to have to happen. We'll see what they do. But it's a rough situation. You look at these games upcoming. You got to survive the stretch to have a chance. And I think with the injuries, the time that they're coming, where the team is at, I don't think they could make it through these next 4 games and still be alive, because that's really the ultimate litmus test. So, yeah, that's all I've got for this video. Just really, really sad news, I think, for this team at this point. And I think it just kind of puts a bow on what's been a very disappointing season. Now, later this week, we should have a mock draft coming out. I put up a poll on Twitter about it. Most people wanted to see one. So we'll plan on that. We'll have one during the bye week as well. And then we'll probably try to take a break, because as much as we'll talk a lot about the draft, and we'll have to kind of transition towards that here because season's sort of over, right? We'll still do our game recaps, but there's a clear direction this is heading. We'll talk about other offseason things too, of course. We're going to talk about head coach and hopefully GM. But as much as mock drafts are fun, you know, we want to talk about all the players in this class. We're going to talk about the situation. Where did the Jaguars start with this? You know, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's offensive line. It's defensive line. That's the way I feel about it. But we'll talk a lot about that sort of stuff, and that will start to increase as we get closer to the offseason. But we'll have a mock draft out this week. If you guys got any other ideas for stuff you want to see, let me know. I'll absolutely consider it. But shout out to our channel members, Premier Nasir 904, Mr. Dolphin, and Scrubber Ducky 500. Appreciate your support. If you guys want to join as a channel member, more than welcome to. You can ask me questions in the comments, or hopefully this graphic explains it enough. But that's all I've got. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, the best you can given the situation with the Jaguars. But you got other things to look forward to in life too. So that's it. Hope you have a great rest of your day once again, and finally, go Jags.